Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're actually tossing out the usual agenda and jumping headfirst into a massive Marvel mystery. We're going to unravel some wild lore, putting a massive spotlight on one of the absolute greatest mutants of all time, Magneto. And just to show you how deep this particular rabbit hole goes, we're even going to pull Doctor Strange into the mix. Okay, let's dive right into this because this first bit of trivia is a complete rug pull. Right, so we all know Magneto's helmet is legendary. It's the one thing that keeps Charles Xavier and all those other telepaths out of his head, right? Well, what if I told you that this completely beloved character trait, like the literal reason he wears that specific helmet, is entirely an invention made up for the screen? Crazy, right? Section 1, Screen Rules versus Comic Lore. So, to really understand how we got here, we kind of have to play lore detective. Basically, we're going to investigate some widely accepted pop culture facts and compare them directly to the original source material. It's super important to remember that movies and comics, they are just totally different mediums. You know, what works perfectly on a giant splash page doesn't always translate to a 2-hour film. Because of that, characters get redefined to serve a brand new narrative format. And today, we're putting Magneto right under that microscope. Section 2, Magneto's Helmet Mystery. Let's focus on the master of magnetism himself, and honestly, the absolute biggest misconception surrounding his iconic headgear. On screen, Magneto's helmet is this ultimate, completely indispensable shield against telepathy. But in the original comics, it was actually Magneto's intense electromagnetic field that kept the telepaths out. Seriously, if you go back to the early comic arcs, like Chris Claremont's famous Volcanic Bay story, that raw, natural magnetic field is explicitly what shielded his mind. The helmet was literally just part of the costume. But wait. Here's the real twist. The cinematic universe actually borrowed this telepathy-blocking helmet idea from a totally different mutant villain. In the original comic lore, it was Juggernaut who actually needed a special helmet to protect his mind from psychic attacks. Magneto just sort of co-opted it for the movies. And this brilliantly illustrates how we, the fans, interact with adaptations. As one community member pointed out online, the fan base completely embraces this cinematic change because honestly, it serves the story so perfectly. Giving a physical object the power to block the world's most powerful telepath creates this immediate, tangible stake that you can visually see on screen. It just works. But hey, if you still need absolute, undeniable proof that the helmet wasn't required in the original lore, comic fans always point to this one very specific moment. Uncanny X-Men issue 150. In this issue, Storm literally sneaks into Magneto's room while he's fast asleep. He has absolutely no helmet on, no suit on, and yet his natural defenses are still completely active. It is definitive proof of his innate abilities. Section 3, The Sling Ring Secret. Now, Magneto isn't the only one who got a massive cinematic lore upgrade. Let's pivot to Doctor Strange for a second to see a very, very similar pattern. Just like Magneto's helmet, we've got a stark contrast here. In the cinematic universe, Wong and Strange absolutely require physical sling rings to travel around and open portals. But if you look at the actual comic book source material, sling rings simply do not exist. Strange just uses his innate spells and magical mastery to teleport himself wherever he needs to go. So why the change? Well, the narrative logic here is identical to Magneto's helmet. Think about it. If a character can teleport anywhere, anytime, it is incredibly hard to write high stakes. By adding a physical limitation, like a tool that can be dropped, stolen, or broken, you create instant tension. It essentially becomes Chekhov's magic ring. It's a built-in way to pull the rug out from under the hero the second things start getting a little too easy. And the cinematic inventions for Doctor Strange certainly didn't stop there. Making the Eye of Agamotto a literal holder for an Infinity Stone, specifically the Time Stone, which, by the way, was a completely random choice for the character, was a highly effective change for the screen. They even turned the Cloak of Levitation into its own distinct reacting character, which was a brilliant cinematic twist. Adaptations are constantly molding the mythos to fit the medium. Section 4, Where Mutants and Magic Meet. Let's move along and see how this all builds, because these two characters, Magneto and Doctor Strange, they don't just share a history of cinematic upgrades, they actually intersect beautifully in the comics. If you follow the reading order around the massive 2014 Axis event, you start with New Avengers in 2013, move right into Axis where Strange is a key supporting player, and then boom, you shift right into Magneto's solo series with issues 11 and 12. It's just a fantastic showcase of how Marvel weaves these vastly different powers, mutants and magic, together into one cohesive storyline. Section 5, Expanding the Multiverse. So now that we've looked at the differences between the pages and the screen,
how does this all actually fit together? Well, the crucial point is none of these versions are wrong. Marvel officially designates these interpretations as completely distinct realities. Earth 616 is the prime universe, right? That's where Magneto's natural field blocks mines and Strange doesn't need a ring. Then you have Earth 1999-99, which is the cinematic universe with the helmet rules and the sling rings. There's even Earth 828 with the Baxter Building and a specific mutant universe housing the X-Mansion in North Salem. So whether it's comic lore or screen rules, they all exist validly within their own specific Earth designations.
Which brings us to our final thought for today's explainer. With the multiverse constantly shifting, constantly blending together, which cinematic invention do you think will permanently become comic book canon next? I mean, we've seen ideas jump from the screen back to the page before, and with characters as dynamic as Magneto leading the charge, it is absolutely bound to happen again. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack all this source material today. Keep questioning the lores, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.